Go ahead and get started. I'd like to call to order the September 24th, 2025 meeting beginning at, I'm looking, 7:43 p.m. This is considered a work session for the Centennial School District. First thing to do is approval of the agenda as presented in board book. Do I have someone who will make a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve the agenda.
I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded by Director Harden and Director Stanley to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, you can say aye or we can do the thumbs up. We are in a Zoom environment. Our screens are on, and so it's helpful to do at least one visual sign for us as well. So all those in favor of approving the agenda as presented. There we go. Thank you, guys. That's perfect. Appreciate that so much. So we're moving forward with the agenda. Introduction of guests. I would like to turn that over to Superintendent Owens, wherever you are on my screen. Great. There you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Shields. I'm pleased to announce the selection of Gustavo Cervantes Vargas as Assistant Principal of Centennial Middle School. Gustavo brings over a decade of experience as a dual language educator, program coordinator, and instructional leader, with a deep commitment to equity, inclusion, and fostering student success through culturally responsive practices. Most recently, Gustavo served as the K through 8th grade dual language program coordinator at Aloha Huber Park in the Beaverton School District, where he led efforts to strengthen bilingual instruction, support teachers through coaching and professional development, and partner with families to ensure inclusive and effective learning environments. He has also coordinated summer learning programs such as Camp Achieve and Summer Splash, where he designed engaging and supportive opportunities for multilingual students to thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. Prior to his most recent leadership role, Gustavo taught in Beaverton as a dual immersion educator, where he infused cultural perspectives into the curriculum and built strong bridges between Spanish and English language learning. His teaching was rooted in inquiry-based learning, collaboration, and honoring the diverse experiences students bring into the classroom. Gustavo began his career as a paraeducator, which shaped his strong belief that with the right support, each student can experience success. Gustavo holds a BA in Liberal Studies from Portland State University and a Master in Education in Educational Leadership from Lewis and Clark College. An immigrant from Jalisco, Mexico, he brings a unique perspective and passion for creating schools where every student feels known, valued, and empowered to succeed. So please join us in welcoming Gustavo to Centennial Middle School. We're excited for the leadership he will bring to our community. So Gustavo, if I have left anything for you to share after that extensive bio, please feel free to speak briefly to the board.
Yes, thank you. Superintendent Owens, Chair Shields, and honorable members of the school board. I just want to express my sincere appreciation. I'm extremely excited to be able to work at Centennial Middle School, being able to serve the community, the teachers, the wonderful staff, and parents of this wonderful school. Over my short term at Centennial, you can already notice a change in culture. And I don't attribute that success just to my presence there. It is a team effort that all partners are involved, have contributed to that change in culture. I invite the board whenever they'd like to join us to just come get a walkthrough and come through our building and see how it's changed. I'm really excited to see the change, and I'm really hopeful of all the amazing work that we'll be able to do this year. So thank you again, and I'm really looking forward to a positive school year.
Thank you, Gustavo, and welcome to the district. Appreciate that you are taking us on and being with our students in the way that in your introduction, the way that you're going to be able to contribute. That's fantastic. So thank you again. So board members, we'll be moving on, but and you're more than welcome to stay, but we understand that you have a big day ahead of you tomorrow too.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Board members, we need approval of the September 10th board meeting minutes as presented in board book. Do I have a motion to approve
Motion to approve the minutes.
and a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve from was it Chair Salaski, Director Salaski? I have a habit, and Director Stanley. All those in favor indicate by thumbs up or aye.
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 Thank you. The minutes have been approved. We have no public forum during a work session, so we're moving on to reports for our long-range facility planning with the DLR group, and I am passing it back again to Superintendent Owens to get us started on that.
Great. Thank you, Chair Shields. So we have the opportunity this year and in the coming year and years to engage in long-range facility planning. Some of you may remember Karen Montevino from DLR Group. She helped with our pre-bond planning that happened prior to the 2020 bond that was successful, and also with some of the projects afterwards as well. We also engaged with DLR to do a facilities review when we noticed that there were bond dollars that had exceeded the amount of projects that we'd identified. And so we were able to go below the line and identify even more projects to be able to benefit students. So we've had a long-standing relationship with DLR Group. I'm pleased to have them here tonight. We've got Karen as well as Robert, who are representing the firm. And without any further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Karen to introduce her team and orient us to the process that's forthcoming.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Owens. I appreciate it. We are indeed very honored to once again be able to partner with Centennial School District in this work. We very much believe in the work that you're doing and are happy to be able to participate with you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We do have a presentation that we want to just kind of walk you through. And the goal of our time together is we just want to be able to lay out the process that we are anticipating going through. We would love to hear from you as well in this process, any questions you may have, but also from the school board of any priorities or outcomes that you hope from this process. So with that, please do ask questions as we go through this, but I'll go ahead and get us started. So really quick, I'm going to run through introductions of our team, talk what facility planning is about, a little bit of our history, and then the objectives and schedule and an emphasis on engagement in this process. So for those that don't know, I am a principal in our Portland office. I've been with DLR Group for about 30 years, and I spent most of my career in working with school districts, especially in planning and programming of facilities. I also have with me tonight Robert, who is also a principal at DLR. I'll let him introduce himself.
Oh, thanks, Karen. I've been with DLR Group for a little less, just over 26 years, and also like Karen, my focus has been on K-12.
And it looks
We
like
also-
we've got John in the gallery. If we can get John promoted, he's one of the team members as well. Thank you.
There's John.
Oh, good. I was panicking. Thank you all. I'm glad to be here. My name is John Fulton. I'm a planner and architect with DLR for about 12 years now, specifically all focusing in K-12 for the most part, and also involved in some of those summer improvement plans. So I'm excited to be part of the larger projects now. Thank you.
Also, as part of our team, you may recognize Scott Rose. So we are teaming with him, having him as part of our team to really be able to look at the physical needs assessments in great detail, as RNC has already conducted those. And then also we feel like kind of working together more closely as we start to develop the plan. And he can double check costs, can also look at the flow of projects and make sure we have everything cost and really kind of dive deeper into the schedule of what takes place of the specific projects over a period of time. So I think it's going to help us have a more accurate and effective plan. So we're excited to have him as part of our team.
So I used this joke with our administrators and it landed awkwardly if you go back to the last slide. So I figured I'd use it again, which
Okay.
is if you're a basketball fan, it's like when the Warriors added Kevin Durant. I feel are adding Scott Rose. So take it for, take it for what you will.
And we just wanted to throw this slide in here for folks who may not be familiar with DLR Group. We're a national firm with a national impact and local experience and expertise. We have engineers, planners, architects, designers of all all realms and sustainability and planning and just to show you that we have a very, to keep the sports analogy, a very deep bench here in our firm.
I'm going to take a minute just to explain facility planning. I know that some of you have been through this process before, but some of the components of long-range planning is the physical assessment of buildings. It's also looking at enrollment and capacity. Those can often be drivers of physical improvements. And also looking at educational suitability. So do the buildings align and support intended pedagogies? We also will be looking at financial resources that you have and making sure that whatever we propose for a facilities plan is comfortably within the district's means and with what the community can support. And then also a part of this is we're looking also long-term, making sure that we are in keeping with the vision of how your bonds are structured, the frequency of them, and the frequency of need of repair renovation of facilities. So that longer term perspective really helps you kind of be prepared and set the cadence of the work that you do.
And then, of course, tapping into that long-term strategy is, of course, building upon the work that was previously done with the 2019-2020 bond, where we looked at repairing roofs and boilers, flooring and the physical buildings, upgrading safety and systems, adding gymnasiums to elementary schools where there were none or where there were multi-purpose cafetoriums. Of course, a big part of that was converting Oliver Elementary to the middle school. And all the appropriate upgrades associated with that, and all within that $65 million bond.
So key focus areas as far as facilities go is really this process will be grounded in equity and ensuring that not only do all students have high quality learning environments, so that'll be driving the plan, but also the process as well, making sure that all voices are heard and brought to the table in an engaged way. Sustainability, which really also just has to do with making sure that there is good value to any of the improvements that might be recommended and that facilities are long lasting and durable. And then, of course, community engagement. And we're going to talk a little bit more about our recommendations, our proposed plan for that.
And then again with the looking at the long term, tapping into more of the work that the district has done with the roadmap 2027, really as a as a core objective to the long range plan that we will be working on is always keeping this in mind with the 5 goals that were established with that, from ensuring equitable and sustainable sustainability meets the needs of future educational needs, being a good steward of assets, um, improving learning for student success, and again, achieving affordable, achievable results. And then when we presented this introduction to the administrative council, we looked at those goals from the 27 roadmap, and we asked some specific questions, just kind of as like a temperature read for the room and where they felt like the master plan needed to go, and just to get some initial ideas. And a lot of what we heard was about CTE. What we heard about was furnishings that fit their students, that are comfortable. We heard a lot about natural lighting. We heard certainly a lot about some of the pre-K programs that are coming to the district, and just to kind of really get the wheels thinking about some of those different aspects to the district that we need to really think about in the master plan.
Since we worked with you previously on the last master plan, the district really has done a lot of extensive work to create this roadmap. And we do want to make sure that we're supporting it and that we're building upon a lot of the engagement work, because we also want to be respectful of people's time. So it's given a lot of good information that we can now be more targeted in our communications and engagement. And we do see a lot of potential opportunity in facility improvements that are well aligned with that roadmap and those 5 goals. So just kind of looking at this from the big picture, we kind of want to give you the overall schedule, and then we're going to talk about what that engagement looks like, and then we can kind of show you the detail. But basically right now we are in process of just gathering a lot of data and information. And then this winter and spring will be really kicking into higher gear on engagement opportunities. We'll be working very closely with Christine on also communicating out findings and letting people know about events and ways that they can be involved. And then starting to look at that community-based holistic committee in the spring, starting that process of kicking off those workshops and then completing them in the fall is our proposed schedule right now. And what this does is it allows you the opportunity to review and refine as you might so choose the proposed plan, and then be able to have time to, if you want to put it before the voters in either the fall of 2027 or the spring of 2028. So it gives you some flexibility. Any questions so far? Okay. So for me, this is the best part, is really working with a variety of groups, listening to what people have to say and what their hopes are and dreams and concerns, and tailoring the plan to that. So we really believe in facilitating the process. So engagement. Who, what, why. So we have several different ways that we are going to engage with people, both digitally, in person. Some things are going to be listening sessions, some things are going to be work sessions, some things are going to be feedback. We're kicking off very, very shortly with doing staff listening sessions, and also walking all of the schools from an educational lens. We'll be interviewing all of the department leads to make sure we understand each department and the vision for that department moving forward. Also, as we've mentioned, an emphasis on equity and student engagement. I have so much respect for teachers. I both love student engagement and they also scare me. So, but it's really fun. And then also community forums to get feedback about the plan. As I mentioned, the Facilities Advisory Committee is where a lot of all of this work comes together. And then, of course, we also want to make sure we're in partnership with you, the board. So what does that look like? So I've got about 4 different slides I want to go through and just talking about that engagement. So we do know that there is the equity committee that's being formed separately from this work. We want to be in coordination and have a subcommittee focused on equity in this process, but want to be very respectful of the work that they are doing. Part of that is we're also looking at data about the district, looking at from a facilities lens, from student and family lens, and then also from neighborhood lens. So we collect data with our GIS analysts to kind of have a holistic view, and everything wherever we can, centering our work in data is very helpful for making clear decisions. A big part of this is determining those affinity groups, those groups of like-minded people that maybe often are sometimes underrepresented or hesitant to share their voice. So we're going to be working with the equity committee to identify those groups and doing a series of listening sessions to families and students. Taking all of this information and reviewing it with that equity subcommittee and then making recommendations and giving information to that facilities committee. So again, like I said, the student voice, we do want to spend time with students listening to their experiences, their perceptions of their learning environments and where they would like to go. We also see that there are opportunities to use this as an educational component too, for educators, principals that are willing to partner with us on that. One of the things we do is a thing called photo voice, and we're going to have to do a workaround with our new rules for cameras and phones in school, but it is an opportunity either through digital or through other means of students giving input from their eyes, looking deliberately as they go through their day in their schools. Another example of that, for instance, we've noticed that since the pandemic, students are even more sensitive to crowds and to sound. And we get that feedback when we ask students oftentimes, what's your least favorite part of the school or campus? And so one of the things that, that we are looking to do, for instance, to turn that into a teaching moment is just to be able to give a sound meter to a student and let them take that around through their day and kind of get sound readings about where those loud noises are. And so I think that could be another way of engaging students. So we have some other ideas too, but those are just a couple. Another part of this work is making sure that we are in alignment with existing and future pedagogies. So how students learn best, what the vision and direction that April Olson and her team have for teaching and learning, and making sure that facilities are in alignment and support. Really, our goal is to make sure that facilities are almost invisible. They just get them out of the way and really be able to support learning. So we're proposing working with the educational alignment team, putting together a summit of educators, TOSAs, those from throughout the district to kind of take a litmus test of how do our facilities align, and then be able to develop a rubric of what's important and the priorities, and then be able to walk through the schools and give scores and ratings, and then be able to take that information back and again use that as for priority setting of potential improvements. And then for those that participated several years ago in this process, we're always improving and evolving it, but it is a similar format to what we've done in the past of going through 6 workshops with the community. And we believe strongly that when you kind of go through its educate, engage, and empower and embrace as kind of the acronym for it, if people in your community know the challenges, the conditions of facilities, the cost to improve, the financial resources, the vision for education. They can help us together make the best decisions to create the facilities plan. So I have no idea what this plan is going to look like. I know that roughly, if you do a continuation tax, you're looking, I think, give or take around 30 million. So that's kind of the frame in the short term. But we don't go in with preconceived notions. We believe if we can have as many of the voices at the table and really increasing parent representation and teacher or principal representation from every school in this process, we're going to have an even stronger facilities plan to recommend to the board. And it is an advisory group. So we do make our recommendation to you and then for your determination about what you do with that. But we also just listed a few things that we think will also help us in making sure that we get everyone to the table. So our ask of you, we really want to make sure that we hear from you any comments that you have really here at the outset of the process. And we want to make sure that we're not going down a path that from your perspective and as representatives of the community that isn't tenable. So that's part of this evening is wanting to make sure you know what we're proposing, but also to hear from you. Love to get your thoughts and encourage other people to be a part of this process. And there are several opportunities. Anything you want to share with us about groups that we need to make sure that we are listening to and bringing to the table. Love to hear your questions, concerns, comments, whatever feedback you have for us. And then we oftentimes, and assume you would have representation on the board. So, I mean, on the facilities committee. So you would have the opportunity, a couple of the board members to represent. You can either rotate off or have however you want to handle it. But I think that is very helpful so you know what's going on. And then also we are proposing coming back to you midway through the process and say, this is where we are. This is what we're hearing. It's before the plan is formed. But again, I just want to make sure that we are in good communication with you. So this is too much information for a slide, but you do have it in your packet. But this is as we're starting to lay out all of the different types of engagement, and we have descriptors for each one and what our objectives are for each one of the meetings. But we're hitting the ground running, and we're going to be busy. And so the data gathering is also engagement as well. So there is that overlap, but these are all of the different activities that we are going through, and I can't even read them on my screen. I have to take a closer look, but they are intermixed because one can inform the other. We are also, and I didn't go into detail about this, but we're proposing 2 community forums. That's something kind of a little bit that we've tweaked since the last time is that what we'd like to do is we've gotten from Roadmap 27 a lot of information about kind of where your community, what they're thinking. We feel like if we can start to get through the process and at least get to a point where the plan is starting to, here's a couple of different scenarios that we're looking at and what we're thinking. If we can present that to the community, it's much easier for them to give us a response of, I like that or I don't like that. It would be preceded by an explanation of a lot of the data and how we're making decisions. But we can get that feedback from the community, take that then back to the Facilities Advisory Committee and see how that might influence our recommended plan, and then can go back out to the community and show them the draft plan, and they can see their voice also as well. we're strong believers that everybody that participates in this process in any way can see their fingerprints in this plan and realize that they do have voice and are heard. I think that's really what builds the strongest plan and gets the best support. So we do have proposed dates to be able to come back to you. So tonight, thank you again very much for your time. And what we'd like to be able to do is come back potentially during your summer retreat. And by then, we're hoping to have gone through the first 3 workshops. So all of the information that we've given the committee on all of the feedback we've heard, physical condition, capacity analysis, and equity and educational alignment. And we've done our big ideas exercise where we really just ask everyone to contribute their ideas. So we can come back to you at that point. And I think that's going to be a good point to be able to get your feedback and make sure we're still in alignment. And then we're proposing being able to come back in January and say, here's the recommended plan, but potentially in a work session so you can ask all kinds of questions and feel very comfortable with it before approving it. However, I will say our team, we're happy to come back anytime you would like us to and give you updates. And I'm sure Superintendent Owens will also be giving you updates as well throughout the entire process. Okay, I've done a lot of talking and you guys have been very gracious about that. But I would like to, if you're comfortable, would love to hear from you about any thoughts you might have or goals that you are hoping are achieved either through this process or through the created plan. Oh, Jess, I believe you have your hand up first.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. I do have a few questions.
Okay.
The first one, how soon do we want to put together this facilities advisory committee?
So we are thinking about starting that process, having that committee meet the 1st of March of 2026. So it's not immediate. We're really kind of trying to pace this, but that's when we're thinking. So probably after Christmas, after the holidays coming back, where we can start to build that committee. And we're thinking of not only looking for, like I said, family representation and administrative representation also from every school, but other people in the community whose voices we feel like should be there. And even people that are hesitant or what we call the thoughtful naysayers. We love to have people that may have differing views. It doesn't really help if we all are thinking exactly the same way.
Great. Thank you. Question 2 was, are we going to go revisit the buildings like we haven't seen them before? Kind of the last time there was a lot of historical upgrades that some of us have been involved with. So are we going to revisit it from scratch?
Are you talking about the plan itself or the schools?
Yeah, the plan, like revisiting the needs of the schools and of the district as a total, and then figuring out what kind of bond or adjustment we need for meeting those needs.
Yeah, we do want to build on what we've done before, but so much has happened since we did that plan in 2019. So we like to bring fresh eyes to it. It's not ignoring the work that we've done before, but we do get all fresh data. So looking at facilities, the physical needs, the educational needs, everything.
Okay, great.
It will
Thank
also
you.
involve stakeholder engagement by going out to each school site and having the staffs be able to speak to what their perceptions and needs are, as well as meetings with each individual administrator. From what I would see as a fresh eyes perspective, not making assumptions based on what's been done, but going back and doing the diligence and seeing if there's perspectives that haven't been seen. I don't know how that tracks with what you're thinking, Karen, but I just wanted to build on your response.
No, that's very true. It is very helpful, and there are changes, staff changes, administrative changes, and those staff listening sessions, we're doing it similar to what we did previously, where we basically just say what's working well at your school and what's not. And we do approach this because we believe facilities they're just kind of the environment for the good stuff that's happening inside. So if we know what activities, behaviors, what you're wanting to do within a building, then we can help you determine what the improvements might need to be. So we don't just limit it to what's going well with your building and what's not. We look holistically at the function of the school, and then we can kind of parse from there. Uh, we also feel like it's a good time to leverage the process for other goals that you might have. So we might find out things that have nothing to do with buildings, but that's good information that we can pass along to you.
You led perfectly into my next question, Karen, which is there going to be any way in the community engagement process to look into community support feasibility for something like a local option levy in addition to the bond?
That's a really good question. Um,
It may be more a James question, I realize.
No, well, I would certainly lean to James too. We don't typically look at that, especially depending on what you're wanting to do with the local option levy, if that has more to do with operations.
Yeah, it's nothing that we've ever really even talked about, but
Mhm.
seeing as other districts have that, I'm just kind of curious, like, is this, when you mentioned like this is a process where we could potentially uncover other things, that was kind of in my line. The other question I have is that, and this is actually probably a James question as well, as we are moving forward to this next bond, and we're basing a lot of this on roadmap 27. By the time we get here, it's going to be past 27. So like, how are we dovetailing strategic planning moving forward with this so that we're not on two separate trains?
Yeah, that's a good question. And Karen, do you want to take an initial run at that second question, and I can come back to the first one?
Okay,
Because I
sounds
know
good.
you've done some thinking around how we can synergize those efforts.
Right. So we have been studying Roadmap 27 and looking at the yearly implementation plan. And so, I think first of all, that's just kind of top of mind for making sure that as we're looking at potential improvements, because that's where we'll get to kind of a list of these are the different things we can do, being able to test them against Roadmap 27, and see how we are supporting. Now, what the district decides to do after 2027, is that a continuation? That part I'm not really sure. I look back to James on that one. But we have been going through a lot of the information, and so that kind of, we like to use that as sort of the North Star for decision making. I also think that's really helpful when you have to prioritize. And then we can say, well, how does this align with what we've said as our 5 goals? Does it affect or does it not? And I think it's a great tool in determining. I hope that
So
helps.
what I would add to that is some of the discussion that we've had, and as you saw in the timeline, this process lives into subsequent years. So this isn't a one and done. Even the committee goes into the subsequent year, and the open houses that you saw that were drafted are in the next academic year as well. And as you said, Director Solowski, we're the next school year, we are in year 4 of a 4-year strategic plan. And so we need to be thinking about the follow-on plan for that. So then does it make sense for the community engagement efforts that we have to synergize, especially as it pertains to educational adequacy and things of that sort? Or does it make sense to have 2 kind of distinct efforts that are not conflated as well? And so that's something that we've talked about with Karen as well as Chief Andreg, to look at, do we want to have standalone, because we'll need community engagement components to each of those, and does it make sense to build those in together or keep those as distinct pieces? But next year, with the strategic plan sunsetting and it being aligned with the state requirements around aligning for student success, community engagement efforts in full force will be something that we're doing. Back to your original question, long-range facility planning as it pertains, and I'm going to speak like an expert, but I'm not, and I'm going to lean back to Karen for fact checking after I say it. But as you think about the district going out for a potential bond in 27 or 28, and then you back that out into precursor years, you have the long-range facility planning, and then you have pre-bond planning, and then you have the actual campaign efforts that those who are involved in the campaign aspect are doing that lead up to the election day. So this long-range facility planning effort is an initial effort to get a baseline as far as the condition of the buildings and what might be on a potential bond. And you can stop at that point. And I think at that point, the board should kind of double back and say, what is it that you want to do? Do we want to transition this into pre-bond planning? Or do we want to say, okay, we've looked at the condition of the buildings and, they are what they are. And, we've done the work that we've done. And we want to dedicate our efforts into a local option levy instead. But I think, and this gets into a different discussion, but to address how I would address your question is, we have the opportunity in the 27-28 school year. Centennial School District has the opportunity to keep the tax rate for the community flat with that pickup difference that Karen talked to of about $30 million. I don't know that the community would necessarily support stacking a bond and a levy on top of that. So I think the discussion at that point would then become, which one of those two things do we want to do? Is it more important to have an operating levy or a bond? But I guess you probably couldn't do both, is how I would address that.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to say chair, Director Shalowski or Karen, I don't know how you would respond or want to build on or correct that.
That's great. Thank you both. That really helps me understand where we're at.
I do think it's something we'll continue the discussion as we get into this and as we start to go through that planning process and people start to realize the financial impacts. And we realize too that there can be shifts with the district in your needs for going one direction or the other. So I will say happy to pivot to at any point in the process as we see fit. But you did a great job, Superintendent Owens. So I don't know how much time we really have because we did spend a fair amount of time talking about this, but I would like to see, are there any other questions or anything you want to share with us as we start this process, that what you think are goals that we should keep in mind?
I'm not gonna raise my hand since no one was talking, but I don't know how much this fits into the facilities plan, but I live in the southern end of the district in between Butler Creek and Pleasant Valley Elementary, and I just watch all the construction that's happening in all the houses, and I sit there and wonder how the schools are going to handle potential additional students and families coming in. I don't know if that's part of this facilities plan or not, but
It is. Yeah, good point. We do have, I believe, the facilities plan, the demographic study that was it Flow Analytics did a couple of years ago, and we can look at updating that. But that's one of the reasons why we look at capacity for schools, and we look at it based on projected enrollments and start to kind of calculate out what that would look like in your schools. Where would those pinch points be with overcrowding in certain facilities maybe there's undercrowding in other parts. And then we would talk through decisions there, or discussion about, what are some potential solutions. But that is definitely a part of this process. And we can continue to go back and look at recently permitted projects for housing in the area too, so we can update and keep current on those numbers. That is
Thank you.
one of the wild cards.
Yeah, I know. And I look and I was like, I don't know if it really is a huge concern or not. I haven't looked at the data other than I just see all the housing developments happen and and wonder.
Mm.
So thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay,
Any-
board members, unless there's some pressing, get your questions in now.
I had two more, and then that's all that I had left. If you had anything else, those are just kind of other versions of, do you have thoughts or questions? But that's kind of to the end of our presentation. Again, if you do, or if you would like updates from us, we're happy to come back at any time.
Go ahead, Melissa.
I just wondered, just seeing the question that said who is not in the room that should be, I wondered if it would be possible to connect with recent graduates and get some of their perspective as to things that could have assisted them through their school journey, or just ideas that they might have as they move out of our school system at Centennial that can be a unique perspective that maybe we could tap into.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you. Yeah, let's see what we can do about that to see if we can capture those voices as well.
Others?
I'm good. Thank you, Karen. I think that got a robust process outlined here, and I feel confident we'll tackle all the questions.
Well, thank you very much for just your attention tonight, and then especially for allowing us to partner with you in this work. We're very excited.
And board members, because we do have a calendar of dates, and Karen, I'm looking at it, the Facilities Advisory Committee, which I know we had specific board members who were kind of tasked with that, but board members were invited to come in as they could. So board members, if this is an interest of yours, you have some of these dates already in front of you. And I know how calendars fill up so quickly and are in our lives. So we'll make sure that we pull this out of the presentation. We'll send it to you separately. You can start looking at your calendar. And then if you have a specific interest, something there where you could commit to this type of a schedule, then we're gonna ask for that because it is a commitment and there's quite a few hours in it, but it's a really rewarding process. And it gives you such a great overview of who we are, what we do, and how the district is perceived, not just in our facilities, but in a lot of different ways. So I encourage any of you this is like something that you could commit to. Look at those dates, and we'll be asking you specifically for a couple of us to show up on a regular basis. Anything else, Karen, that you can think of, or your team members?
I think we're all good.
All right. Superintendent Owens, last comments on this before we move along in the agenda?
I would just say it's a marathon, not a race. There's a lot of components to this. I think we're going to double back when I say we, Chief Andrag and Director Southerton and I are going to double back. We have a bi-weekly meeting set up with DLRs and the team to talk about some of those dates to make sure that they're firmed up before we provide them out. Some of the dates that are on the calendar indicate this will happen in the week of this or are penciled in at this point. So we'll make sure that those are more firm before we provide them out, indicating that those will be starting in March. So we have a little bit of runway, but we'll make sure to get those out as soon as we have them more firmed up.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Karen
you.
and team. We appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time this evening.
Thank you.
And we'll be seeing a lot of you.
Yes.
Good night. Okay, board members, looking back at our agenda for this evening, this is what I'm going to propose. We go to 5.2, the enrollment update report, and then we will take a short break because the next thing on our agenda is the personal electronic devices update. And with the 30 slide deck thing presentation, I'm sure that's going to take us a little time. So we'll have one of those personal breaks and we'll come back for that. So, Director Southerton, you are on the named list here of talking to us about enrollment.
Yep, back again. Sorry, or you're welcome, depending on how you feel about that. So pleased to present to the board the fall enrollment report. This is somewhat of a regular practice that we provide in Centennial. We forecast enrollment in the spring during the budget process, and we allocate FTEs, and then in the fall, we true up kind of the number of students that presented and look at class size and enrollment overall and see how we did with our forecast and what we're experiencing. So provided this a couple of years, but last year was not asked and did not provide it last year. So for those of you on the board, you're probably used to seeing this, and it may be new for some. So data, just to kind of ground us in the data is based on enrollment for students who have attended one or more days of school this year. October 1st is usually the high water mark for enrollment throughout the year. So we're fastly approaching that date. We may see some additional students enroll. We have continued to see some late enrollment. So just kind of noting that for you all. It is also the traditional high mark of enrollment for the year as the October 1 student count. And that's for a variety of reasons. We're a high mobility district, so we have a lot of move-ins and we have a lot of move-outs. We have some early graduations, and we have some students that transition to work or otherwise. And so a variety of different reasons why we see that decline, but it is noteworthy that typically the high point of enrollment for the year will be in the next couple of weeks. Also noting ODE requires periodic reporting monthly, and that will adjust our funding throughout the year. So enrollment is the highest impact to the funding that we receive for the district. Weights are given based on the needs a student may present with, and these are defined needs by the Oregon Department of Education. They're certainly not an exhaustive list, and there's certainly advocacy out there for updating the weights. But the weights that are defined by the Oregon Department of Education and local school districts receive additional funding for included students experiencing one or more disabilities, English language learners, parenting, teen parenting, or pregnant and parenting teens. And then there's also a factor for students experiencing poverty as measured by the census. Centennial, like districts across Oregon, has experienced declining enrollment, and you'll see that in our charts, in the charts that I'll provide here in a moment. And that's also for a variety of reasons. Declining birth rates probably being the largest impact that our district and around the state is experiencing. We recently engaged with Flow Analytics and did a population study and a forecasted enrollment study for the next 10 years in our district, kind of speaking to the question that was asked during the last presentation, what can we expect? And we have noted, or they did note, that birth rates continued to decline, or were declining pre-pandemic, and they've continued to decline post-pandemic. So we are seeing a lot of growth on the south side of the district, but overall we're seeing fewer students per number of residents, and that's consistent across the state. So the total enrollments as of these numbers are as of September 19th, so last Friday. So the data is fresh. Was 5,464 students overall. We're working with Principal Miller. We do have a little bit of cleanup to do on the Centennial High School numbers. just to make sure all the 10-day drops have been captured. For those of you that are not familiar, the term 10-day drop is when we have a student who is not reported to school for 10 continuous school days. We're required by the Oregon Department of Education to drop that student from enrollment. As a high mobility district, it's not uncommon that we have students that were with us last school year that moved over the summer, did not let us know, have not, and no additional school districts have requested their files or their information. And so we expect them to continue to be enrolled, and then they may not show up in fall. And so after 10 continuous days, we do drop them from remote enrollment. We are able to re-enroll that student if they present right away. So there's usually not much of a delay if they do come back from vacation and they just didn't alert us or had a other circumstance that prevented them. Distribution of students of that 5,464, we have 2,248 students, including CVA, in the K through 5 elementary level. The teacher to student ratio for general education classroom. So just to be really clear, this is the average amount of students in a classroom. It's not including specials, and it's not including music and PE at the elementary level. So this is the average class size is 24.7. There are no 0.7 students, just to be clear, that is an average. Thank you, Director Stanley, for laughing at my jokes. I always appreciate that. I know I can count on you. So at middle school, 1,289 students, again, including CVA. I do call out the number of students enrolled at CVA at each level, just so you can have a clear understanding of our virtual academy and students enrolled versus our brick and mortar. So teacher to student ratio at the middle level is actually lower than the elementary level. It's 1 per 22.22 students. And that's because students at our educators at our secondary level have a prep period. And so 1 out of the 5 or 6 periods per day in the day they have for preparing lessons. And so the actual class size ends up being a little bit higher when you take out that prep period. You don't have educators teaching for that period. So you will see a lower ratio. And that does include music at that level, because music is, every class is separate at the middle level. So when you do factor that in, it is comparable. But it doesn't include counselors, special education, all the others listed there. At the high school level, inclusive of Centennial Virtual Academy, is 121 students. We have 1,778 students currently enrolled. We do need to clean up the 10-day drops, as previously noted, and Principal Miller is working with his team diligently on that. And we expect the October one will have very good numbers on that. We want to consider that Cal enrolled students are just over 100 students spend half their day at Cal and not at the high school. So we pay separately to Cal for that. So backing them out and then backing out early release period and free periods, the effective ratio of student or educator to students is 24.5. Again, not class size, because you have to again count for that free period. So you do see higher class sizes at the high school level than you see at the middle or the elementary level. And that's based on the current enrollment. Once we get the 10-day drops cleaned up, if that continues to be high, we may want to consider action. It might be a distribution issue with the offerings, or it might be a resource issue, and we'll just have to evaluate that. We have 117 students overall in alternative placements and special classrooms. That's both inside the district, self-provided, such as our Centennial Transition Center or our contained classrooms. And it's also the partner schools or the specialized schools, such as Open School and Rosemary Anderson High School. This is some historical enrollment data, and I tried to make it include a 10-year look back, but also large enough that you could read it on the screen. So hopefully that is clear. What I observe in this data is that we continue to see a decline in enrollment. You can see it more acutely around the pandemic, and then you can see it kind of leveling out. These are all based on the October 1st data. We want to use the same point in time because we know enrollments increase and enrollments decrease. So when we measure, we want to look at the same moment of time to kind of see the rate of change. And what we can see is, we are still experiencing a slight decline. It is not completely leveled out. So while we do have a lot of growth in the south side of the district, we have fewer students enrolled in the north side of the district. And overall, there's fewer students in the overall district on all sides holistically. This is just a chart. If you wanted to kind of see where enrollment has been historically, we were just under 6,500 average daily memberships or number of students enrolled in 2016, and so just under 5,500 currently for this year. So the rate of change is not as sharp. You can see it leveling out on the end of this, on the end of the chart, the far right side. So that is what we were seeing in the forecast. We're seeing a continued decline, but a modest decline of less than about 1% a year with our updated enrollment forecast that we solicited last spring. Enrollment weights, just to dive a little bit deeper into that, we do receive one extra weight for students receiving educational special education services or have an IEP. It is capped at 11%, and that change was not made. Lifting that cap was not made in the legislature, even though you may have heard about it on the news quite extensively, and there was a lot of support for it. They were just not able to find the funding for it at the state level. We do have 10 weights for the pregnant and parenting program. We receive a 0.5 weight for students receiving ELL or English Language Learner programs. And we have 1,285 students in that. So it's about 642.5 additional weights. And then for poverty, we have 800 students that qualify, again, based on the census data. And I know there's a strong interest in cleaning that up because we don't feel it accurately represents our population. So overall, the expected weight enrollment with the weights is expected to be 6,625.63. And I know that's a very technical and kind of breakdown for you. And here's kind of the punchline or why it makes such a big difference is we receive this year, we're forecasted to receive about $11,250 per weight from the state school fund for our general education general purpose grant. This amount pays not only for teachers, but it pays for all of the basic and largely extended services that the district provides. So counselors, secretaries, recess duty, safety patrol, bus drivers, principals, athletics, all these things that you see in the 100 section of the budget book, these are all funded with that $11,000. Support staff like custodians, maintenance, IT, and safety, general electives, and special programs, music, art, PE, and base level services for ELL and special education are included in that as well. We do have some grants such as IDEA, we have some grants such as Title that provide additional funding, but the base funding and the inclusive general education funding for students in these programs is in the general fund, and it's all part of that $11,000 that we receive on a per weight basis. The additional weights that we receive above the base weight go largely to our learning specialists, special education, speech pathologists, outplacements special that we may have, reading specialists, bilingual liaison, teen parenting program, and other specialized services. So kind of where does the money go? This is the broad categories. These are the broad categories. And then looking at the distribution by grade or class size data, what you can see is this is just a blown up or part of the chart that you receive, the board receives on a monthly basis of class size distribution across the district. So specifically, this is the top section of that one pager that calls out elementary class sizes. And so if you go to the bottom right, you see that you take the 2,248 students and you divide by the number of teaching positions, you see the average class size is 24.43. Students don't come in nice packages of 25, I've been told and I've observed. So we do see some variation in the class sizes, right? The way to read this grid is we have the grade level on the top of each section. So kinder, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. We have the class size in the middle of each row, and we have the number of teachers assigned to that class or that grade band in the bottom of each square there. These are the abbreviations for the schools at the top. So you have Patrick Lynch, Powell Butte, Park Lane, Butler Creek, Meadows, and Pleasant Valley. I've highlighted 2 of these in green because we've deployed what we call hotspot teacher positions. Every year we fund a couple additional teacher positions that we don't assign because as good as we may think we are in forecasting enrollment, we know that we are a high mobility district and kids and students may present differently than anticipated. And so we want to make sure that we can speak to those hotspots or spots where we have exceptionally high class sizes and rapidly provide resources. We've done that in both of these cases. So we've deployed or assigned, approved an additional kinder teacher at Pleasant Valley and an additional first grade teacher at Butler Creek. We have the one highlighted in yellow here, which is for Park Lane, and directly above it, you see it's kind of highlighted in it's supposed to be a light red, but showing up a little different on the screen here. So Park Lane has 2 classroom or grade bands that we're keeping an eye on. The district originally allocated 3 teachers at the 3rd grade level and 2 teachers at the 5th grade level. And because of the behaviors or other issues associated with the students enrolled, the buildings determined that swapping that and having 3 licensed educators at the 5th grade is better overall, and 2 at the 3rd grade. So I know we're continuing to work with that building and leadership as well as the staff there to make sure that we're watching that because that does exceed not only our posted class size targets, but well exceeds what we would want to see at the district. So we have 3 other that are highlighted there. You'll notice or observe Patrick Lynch here is highlighted on the kinder level and on the 5th grade level. As you can see from my note, kinder level at Patrick Lynch, we are engaging with our families there to let them know that we have an opportunity at Park Lane just down the street where we have lower class sizes. So Park Lane has 1 class of 20 and 2 classes of 21. It is just down the road from Patrick Lynch, and so there might be some families who want to transfer a couple of their students there voluntarily to Park Lane and kind of level that out. If we're not successful with a voluntary overflow process, then we'll deploy additional tactics, but we first want to work with families and offer them the opportunity and see if there's a way to voluntarily kind of level out the class sizes. Lastly, we're monitoring Powell Butte 4th grade because it is very close to the cap size. So we are one of 2 districts in the region that have posted class sizes caps that we've agreed to and we've posted, and while under it is still close to the cap and higher than we'd like to see. So we may work and do a similar voluntary overflow with that school as well. Still researching, whether or not potentially Park Lane or potentially Patrick Lynch, and just kind of seeing if there's an opportunity to level that out. They also, as you can observe, have really ideal, one would say, low class sizes for the 3rd grade here with 20 kiddos in each class size. So there may be an opportunity in 24th to 5th grade. So there may be an opportunity to see if there's a blend or if there's some kiddos that are accelerating and doing really well, there might be an opportunity to have them participate in some 5th grade activities for part of the day as well. So just exploring things on those as well and continuing to monitor. With that, I welcome any questions you have.
Rose, Dr. Slisky.
Yes, thank you. I had 2 questions. One very simple, and this may be so when I was a kid, there was often a split class when things happened. Has that kind of moved out of the lexicon of like the way things are done in elementary school, like a third, fourth split class if there's issues like that? Is that not done anymore?
Yeah, I'll take the
Yeah,
first
I can
run
take
at
the
it.
first.
But James.
Yeah, I'll take the first run and Paul can clean it up. Yeah, they call them splits. They call them blends. I call them splits because they're blends a nice way to put it. But the curriculum and the standards for individual grade levels are so specific and unique that we really try to steer away from doing blended grade levels. We do have one that's posted right now for Butler Creek for kindergarten and first grade. But generally speaking, it's a practice that we try to like to avoid. Paul, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think you hit it head on. You know, our ideal is to deploy resources when we have space, and if we have resources, when we run out of resources, then we look for other, other potential strategies. And I think there is an opportunity to potentially at Butte in particular, because you look at the fourth grade class size, which is high, and you look at fifth grade, which is low, and there's just a wondering there if there's an opportunity to level those out. Because you could have class size of 26 or 27 if you did a blend there, and there might be students that works for when you're talking about 150 kiddos overall. It's a good amount of group that you might have some folks that it would work well, but
Okay,
it's
thank you. My other question is with the middle school and high school level class sizes, they all have a prep period of 0. So if I'm doing the math, I'm seeing that their numbers are all actually higher because we're putting one, like that 0 is included in the average. Is that correct?
so to see what the effective class size is, you could take the ratio uh, and then multiply it by 1.2 to see what the effective class size is with the prep period. So 24.5, generally speaking, would become 29.4, because you have teachers can only teach 4 out of 5 periods.
So when their effective ratio, right? Are they paid then on their effective ratio or on their actual ratio of kids that they have in the class if it
Oh,
reaches that
yeah,
threshold?
good question. They're sorry, I wasn't following that for a
That's
second.
okay.
They are paid on number of students enrolled for the majority of a trimester. If they exceed a cap size, then they get additional
Okay.
pay. Now, to clean that up a bit, we don't have that at the secondary level. We only have that additional pay at the elementary level.
Okay.
Our current MOU is at the elementary level only.
Thank you. That helps.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break. It's 8:55 by my watch. So everybody be back here at 9:05, and note that we end our meetings at 10 p.m. unless we call for an extension and vote on that. So here we go. All right, see you in 10. Well, that break went really quick. Okay, it looks like we are back. We are moving on with the agenda, continuing the meeting at 9:05 p.m. On 5.3, personal electronic devices. This is an update. This is the thinking of, I believe, and I'm going to ask that Superintendent Owens clarify that just a minute with us, and then we will hand it over to Director Olson for the slide deck.
Great. Thank you, Chair Shields. And you're right, that break went by fast. And if you think that went by fast, and they say time flies when you're having fun, well, it's going to go by really fast because we're going to have a lot of fun talking about personal electronic devices. So we have April Olson, who is not only our Director of Curriculum and Student Learning, but she is also a North Clackamas School District Board member. To be clear, she is not representing herself as that tonight, but she is also addressing this in her other work as well. So she has some expertise to draw in that way too. Our intention this evening is to go through some decision points in the draft policy in advance of bringing you a first read. I'll speak to that in a moment. While we're doing this, we're also doing some community engagement efforts. I showed you in my Friday email that we're sending out surveys to our faculty as well as our students, especially at the 6 through 12 level, and our families as well, to get information and input, particularly around implementation. Our school started this year as if the executive order was in place. So the reason we did that was to not have some sort of whiplash when January 1st came around, that we're implementing some new, entirely different procedure. Now, they've implemented that at the school level based on how they agreed to design that and what site-specific context they had. That doesn't necessarily predicate what the policy needs to be. And so that is something that we'll discuss here. So what we'll do is we'll take the board input we received tonight. We'll take the community engagement efforts that we're attempting to do. We waited for the school year to get started before we got that ball rolling, and we've gotten that rolling in the last week or so, with the intention at the first meeting in October to bring you a draft policy that has some decision points isolated that reflect all of the inputs that we've taken to date at that time. So what I will say is the draft policy, if you've had a chance to look at it, I sent it in the Friday email as well. It has decision points, but they're fairly constrained. So, for example, you're not having your cell phone at school. Like, that's the executive order. The decision points within that are is it on your person, in your backpack, in your locker, or in a pouch? Like, there's a few progressions in terms of where it's going to be, but you're not going to have it. Are the disciplinary consequences in the policy, or are they at the site level? So that's what Director Olson is going to walk us through tonight. She's going to provide a little context first, and then help us identify some decision points and get board input in terms of where we're leaning or where we might need to get more information before we bring you a policy, because we want to make sure that first read of the policy is something that you want to see and is not far afield from your desires and wishes. So with that preface, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Director Olson to lean in and then also clean up anything that maybe I misstated at the outset.
That was great. Thank you, Chair Shields and directors. Yes, there are 30 slides, but I intentionally did that in hopes to scaffold our conversation to be more efficient. So let's see if that ended up working. As you know, the goal for restricting the use of personal electronic devices in school is to improve academic outcomes by ensuring students are fully engaged in their learning with a distraction-free environment that supports their well-being, focus, and ability to thrive academically and personally. So that's the kind of the lens we're looking at today. Oops, it is not advancing. There we go. So the board, per the guidance from ODE and OSBA, the board has some key roles. Before we dive into reviewing and approving the policy, I do want to look at the next four roles that you have just as a continuation of the framing. One of those is to monitor implementation. And as Superintendent Owens shared with you, we've already been implementing. So we know that successful implementation starts with understanding the why, not just the what. So to that end, over the summer, we did do some listening sessions with students who were in summer school, as well as staff who participated in summer school as buildings were determining how to be in line with the executive orders at the outset of the school this fall. Inclusive in that communication, then through newsletters, through Parent Square, through back to school nights, those were shared not only with staff, provided PD and pre-service, students were provided training and in their advisory classes. And we, each of our secondary schools has been tracking this year as students have had violations of cell phone use. They have been tracking the number of violations that students are having and have kind of a progressive disciplinary process that they have. So we'll have some of that data in addition to this student, staff and parent guardian survey data additionally for you at the first read if that is helpful. We also acknowledge that through this policy development, we're upholding student rights, that for some students, the phone is really a lifeline, and we need to build systems that make room for real needs of students. Understanding that effective implementation takes time and flexibility, and that we need to ground our solutions and our decisions in empathy and responsiveness, and make sure that we're building in opportunities to reteach students along the way. So let's get into reviewing and approving the policy. As you know, there is a new proposed policy as well as a proposed AR, and then a proposal to delete the previous and existing policy and AR. So the first kind of decision point is around scope, and this is clear guidelines for device storage, where and how devices will be stored, ensuring that they're stored in a secure manner, ensuring consistency in expectation, but flexibility in implementation for age appropriateness of different settings and different grade levels. Being sure that we are communicating the storage procedures really clearly to all stakeholders in multiple different means, and ensuring that school staff are able to support that through their training, and then continuing to evaluate policy and implementation. So to this end, this section of the sample policy gives us a couple of options as Superintendent Owens laid out. The personal electronic devices option must be placed in district provided pouches or storage, may be kept by students in lockers or backpacks, but not stored on the person or in the person's clothing, or may be stored on the student's person, but may not be used during regular instructional hours. So those are kind of those decision points. Our suggestion, based on current procedures that our secondary schools are implementing, is to go with the kind of least restrictive language at this point, that they may be stored on the student's person, but may not be used during regular instructional hours. That aligns with current practice. I did want to just throw out there, we're doing first read tomorrow night. And so for reference, North Clackamas went a different route and said they just need to be stored in accordance with district provided grade level based guidance, giving even more flexibility in the event of those implementation corrections. I don't know if board would like to have an opportunity to discuss after each decision point or wait until the end.
I suggest that if these are suggested things, you get the input now, because trying to go back and forth and try to find these pages will be difficult.
Yes, so this is your opportunity on this decision point.
So board members, raise your hand, and because I spoke first, I'm going to go. I'll tell you, I don't approve of maybe starting students person. I am more inclined to have it not be stored on their person or in their clothing, but in a backpack, etc. Having discussions with my own high school kids was interesting to hear how they've been pleasantly surprised about having that often away and really away. So that was my concern when I saw it. Also, I've been doing research on this for a while. I got it here in my hand. I'll provide it to board members or to Superintendent Owens to say that even a phone on your person is a distraction to a distraction in general. So that is my 2 cents. And what I'll do, because I see everybody's hands, which is great. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm just going to go down our list, right? So that I can keep track of everybody. So everyone's going to speak to this. And so I have it in kind of an alphabetical order as members. So as directors. So Director Hardin, you are on that top of the list. Do you have an opinion and or statement as related to this?
Yes, my feeling is they should be kept in lockers or backpacks out of plain sight, not on their person. If we are going to go with a cell phone policy, I think we should go strict and then become less restrictive as trust is developed.
Thank you. Director Lynn. Oh, Director Lynn, you're still muted.
Sorry, I lowered my hand but didn't unmute. Yeah, I'm in favor of leaving it on the person. I certainly don't want teachers doing pocket checks. And I think the executive order was overbroad, and I think this decision point and others, we're going to see unintended consequences as students find ways around it.
Thank you. Vice Chair Moran.
Thank you. I would say I'm a fan of off and away, like truly away and not on a person. I think it tempts, I think it would just be temptation, and eventually we would find ourselves in a situation that maybe Director Lynn would like to avoid, with teachers doing pocket checks and whatnot. And so I would advocate for it to be away. I do also like what North Clackamas is doing by having grade level based guidance. And the way I see that for us is, at the elementary to middle and high school level. I'm not overly concerned about my first grader on a cell phone, although he keeps asking for one. But obviously, fifth graders I know are more attuned to it. So I do like kind of what North Clackamas is doing there, maybe looking at it from that perspective. Those would be my initial thoughts on the suggested policy here.
Thank you. Director Newman.
I was all ready to argue with you about on the person versus in a locker. I'm interested to see some of what you may have seen. I am still inclined, though, to agree with the least restrictive possible. Like Director Lynn, I think that the order was a bit overbroad and rushed. I am also intrigued by North Clackamas School District's language as far as being able to have a policy that allows for age and grade appropriate, allows for, I guess, different storage requirements based on age and grade appropriateness.
Thank you. Director Solowski.
So what I would say as far as the high school is lockers is not feasible. Lockers are not used. There is not enough passing time between classes to get to your locker, let alone, I mean, like, you don't need it between your classes, your phone between your classes anyway. But I would say on the person or in the backpack. would be my recommendation. Agree, least restrictive. We don't want to create power struggles where there don't need to be power struggles, to Director Lynn's point.
Director Stanley?
I have opinions, but I have a question first. Of course, I have opinions. I was in Centennial Middle School on Friday, and I went through the 6th grade pod, and they had phone boxes, and the kids all had their phones in a box on top of their tech cart in class. I'm just curious if other middle schools or for high schools are doing anything else like that. I was intrigued by that. The teacher said it was working well when I asked him. I also am intrigued by having a different K-5 and then secondary on up policy. I think it's different. Like as a teacher, I don't deal with cell phones. I get asked more like, can my student have a smart watch as a first grader? So it's just a different world. I think we need to find a little bit of nuance there. I don't mind the least restrictive, but I'm curious about those boxes because if they're working in some instances, I'd like to hear more about those.
As I understand, the boxes are individually, a teacher can elect to have a box location for students who may not carry a backpack, or some teachers have like the little hanging like shoe baskets where students put them in the slots. Others have said all backpacks need to be at the front of the room, so that's how they mitigate it. So every teacher is kind of putting their own style on that off and away.
I guess I would be most inclined to then say I would rather them not be on the student's person, but off and away in some capacity in the classroom should the kids need them, whether it's a box or a backpack or some sort of pocket chart. We can't even leave our phones alone when they're in our own pockets. So I just don't think it was an overreach in the fact that students don't know a different habit until we show them one also. Thank you.
So any other commentary before we move to the next section? Yeah, Superintendent Owens.
Yeah, I was going to say a couple of things. Number one, I wanted to fold Principal Miller in. I neglected to indicate that at the outset that he's been working in leadership capacity with Director Olson on framing the policy. So any interjections he would like to make, I think, are welcome as well. The other thing I was going to say is there was a particular reason, as I understand it, for why we are recommending this language. And so it might be helpful context. I believe in a future slide, Director Olson's going to break down how each school is currently implementing. But 2 schools are already doing backpacks or lockers, which I believe to be Centennial Middle School and Centennial High School with OMS on the person. Director Olson, were you able to get more insight as to why that nuance is? So the idea on the recommendation was to keep it at the lowest common denominator, knowing that schools can up the ante depending on the school-based context.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yes, I didn't include that in the slides, but I reached out to OMS, and they have been implementing this policy for a couple of years now, and have gotten kind of past that pushback with their students, and are doing. They report their students are doing fine with having them on their person and not out and being a distraction, but they've got a couple more years under their belt as they opened the school to establish these practices, and didn't feel like they needed to go more restrictive at this point.
So Principal Miller and then Director Lynn.
I don't know. I appreciate this discussion because it also helps me as we're continuing to frame each of us or each of the schools is implementing this slightly different. Just from my part, one of the things I did was interview or talk with about 40 other principals, high school principals across the state of Oregon. One of the interesting parts in this one is Portland Public all of their schools did something slightly different. And in this, they went everything from yonder pouches to on your person. And they are sort of in the same touch point that is coming out of the board discussion right now of in your person versus away in a backpack. So the discussion we're having right now is aligned with thinking of people that have, and they have schools that have been implementing this for 3+ years now and have tried this. So I appreciate the discussion.
Thank you. Director Lynn?
Yeah, I had jumped in before because it seems like these decision points are moving forward, but it almost seems I need to check myself because it doesn't seem like we've gotten the input from any of the other stakeholders yet. I just did my parent survey, and I can look at the survey questions. I don't think it's really going to be informative in helping us on any of these particular decision points. We haven't heard anything from the students or anybody else, so it seems a little premature to already be jumping in, because it kind of gives the indication that people have kind of already predetermined these things before we've gotten any input.
Thank you. Any
Good
others
point.
before we, sorry, any other things before we move on? Okay, Director Wilson, continue.
All right. So the next consideration is just definitions. We need to clarify what is covered by the policy. The sample policy gives the definition of personal electronic device, meaning any portable electrically powered device capable of making, receiving calls and messages and accessing the internet independently from the school's infrastructure. And it does include headphones and earbuds attached to personal electronic devices. There is an opportunity to include or not include this footnote that references ODE's guidance, the Fostering Student Learning, Wellbeing, and Belonging, that says that this includes smartphones, web-enabled flip phones, cellular-capable tablets, e-readers, etc. And of course, in either way, it does not include laptop computers or devices that we issue to students. The suggestion, again, to go with the kind of lowest level of restriction would be to not include that footnote. Any
Directors?
discussion on this item?
Yeah. By show of hands, maybe. I won't do a roll call on this one. Okay, Jess, I see the hand.
I'm good with this one.
May I ask a clarifying question about definitions, which sounds funny? The only thing that I did see a value in the footnote was that there are things that I don't always think of as personal electronic devices. I never thought about an e-reader, and I certainly didn't think about smart glasses. And yet I did see a commercial about one. So sometimes for me, just having the information there to help with the definition, right? I guess I think after reading it, I would have leaned towards keeping it in, but that's just because I didn't know these things existed, and it helped me understand better. Others? Director Stanley?
I don't feel like leaving this in makes the policy more restrictive. I think it makes it clear as to what the things are. So I'm inclined to leave it in, not because it makes it more strict and you must do all these things, but because then it adds clarification.
Thank you. Other directors? Director Newman?
Yeah, I mean, kind of in the same veins. I mean, to clarify my understanding, and this is what they told us at the summer conference, the OSBA conference too, that things like smartwatches are included in the directive. So this list, these things are not allowed regardless of whether we put it in the policy as a clarifying footnote, correct?
Correct. And I meant least restrictive language, not least restrictive policy definition.
Yeah, so I guess I would be inclined to maybe leave it in just so we don't have any ambiguity about
Mhm.
when someone is told that their smartwatch is not allowed.
Thank you. Director Stolowski.
So for me, what my mind goes to is compliance and what is going to drive compliance versus what is going to cause um, power struggles. And I see smartwatches as being something that could potentially be a power struggle. And so anywhere where we could provide clarity, um, if we are going to have teachers being like, take off your smartwatch and put it in your backpack, we need to be clear that smartwatches is on the list. That's my
Thank
thought.
you. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to did I cut you off?
Nope.
Thank you. Vice Chair Maureen.
Thank you. Yeah, I initially, like when I read this the other day, I was leaning towards it also maybe not needing to be on there, but I see the value of having it more clearer because yes, I could see somebody, or I should say when I was a high school student, I would have looked for every possible way to get around something. And so, going back to some comments that we made on the previous slide about wanting to avoid power struggles and things like that, I do see the value in having it specifically cleared out, or I'm sorry, spelled out. And then in a few years, the tech people will think of other things, and then we'll have to come back and update the policy again anyway. So I do see the value in keeping that in there.
Thank you. Back to you, Director Olson.
All
unless
right,
there's
I'll come
some-
back to you again when I have my AI bot friend who follows me around with my book bag. The
It's
next
coming. It's coming.
policy exemption or policy consideration is exemptions. And so this is clarifying allowable use based on individualized needs, like medical written order, IUP 504 plan, other individual circumstances, and ensuring staff understand how to verify and honor those. The sample policy is kind of fairly straightforward. The language does give the three different exemptions to the ban, and then says that appeals can be filed with the superintendent and come on, click or designee in accordance with the regular KL complaint procedure. We propose to keep that language in, adding or designee and increasing the response to 15 days, which does align with our KL policy.
Any comment, board members? If I see no hands, I'll make the assumption we're good to move forward.
Okay. So in that same vein, this is goes along with the AR that says that the request for the exemption needs to be provided in writing and include the individual circumstances and educational outcomes, and we aren't proposing any changes to that AR language.
Director Lynn.
Olson, Director Lynn has a hand.
Oh, did not see that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Again, first off, just want to say it would be great to have a public process to inform some of these questions. I think we should be very broad on our exemptions and the people who can grant them. I think we're going to have to, in conjunction with this, revisit our off-campus policy. Because again, part of this conversation is just how to get better consistency on the policy we already had, which was off and away during the school day, all time for all grades, but at lunch and other times when it's in passing, whether it's people requesting for work accommodations, employment, job offers, college notifications, any of that kind of stuff. I think we need to be incredibly broad when we're talking about lunch and passing times and times that are not instructional times.
Thank you. Any others? Director Olson, back to you.
Okay. The next decision point in the AR would be that how long the duration of an exemption would last. You see the options up here, and then whether or not we include in the information about guidelines for exemption consideration language in the AR. Our suggestion is that we keep that guideline language in the AR and that an exemption would be good for 1 year.
Director Newman.
Any?
All right, forewarning, I've been waiting for this part. So the exemptions, and I've kind of been holding off. I know there've been a couple slides here about exemptions, but I'm going to go back again to the summer conference, the OSBA summer conference, because all the Multnomah County board members were chatting, and there were some concerns that I hadn't thought of that were brought up and kind of tie into the exemptions. One of which being students whose families, for example, don't speak English as a primary language at home, and being able to communicate with their students. And so I'm curious. I'll stop keeping my hand raised here. I'm curious if any sort of considerations like that have come into play. And the reason I bring this up now is because a case like that, where we say the maximum duration of an exemption is 1 year, could be. I could envision that being difficult for families who, this is something that would be a perpetual thing year after year. And I would be more interested in language that has exemptions go through the student's enrollment at the school, especially if the exemption process, depending how easy or difficult it is to navigate for families.
Thank you. And I'm trying to keep a little list here of everybody who's raising their hands, and I'm going to get to every single one of you, maybe not in the order in which you raised your hands. So, Director Harden. Are you muted?
Great, sorry.
There you go.
I agree with Director Newman for the extent of that student's enrollment at the school that they are enrolled in, so people don't need to renew the exception every year.
Thank you. Director Lynn.
Yeah, especially since my family is not really one that would be that I can envision being on in the exemption. It would be great to hear from families who would qualify for this to help us inform where this was. But it does seem onerous for people to have to reapply every year. So it should be, for as long as the kid is in school.
Thank you. Director Stanley.
My question about exemptions just would follow the IEP. Instead of each year, could it be for the duration of the IEP until the renewal and rewriting of IEP? If it's good for 3 years, could the phone exemption also last the time period of their IEP? If it's an accommodation.
Thank you. Director Solowski.
I think that when it comes to medical exemptions, the the written letter from the doctor, I don't want that to be a hardship year after year. I know that when I need to get something in writing from my doctor, it's a pain in the butt. And it's a big process. It's doable because I know all the hoops to jump through, but there's so many of our families that I don't think know about that. So would there be a way, let's say somebody has diabetes and they have a wearable, so they need to know what their glucose is before and after they're eating, right? Could that be something that goes through the student health center as opposed to necessarily a letter from their specific doctor? Is there some way that we as a district can remove some of those barriers for our students and families?
Thank you. Director Olson, did you get the input that you needed?
I did.
Thank you. Continuing.
Okay, the next one is the scope. And this clarifies that the electronic device policy may exclude times when students are not on school grounds or not under the supervision of school personnel, with the exception of bus drivers. So communicating clearly where and when the policy is and is not enforceable, and ensuring that everyone understands those boundaries, and that there is a plan for regular communication of the policy. The sample policy language says that student possession or use of a PED is prohibited from the start of regular instructional hours until the end of regular instructional hours, except as provided below. PEDs can be used when students are not on school grounds and are not under the supervision of school personnel other than a bus driver, with the footnote that if students are under the supervision of personnel other than a driver, the use could be prohibited, given that there would be potentially other staff on the bus in the event of a field trip.
Board members.
We are suggesting.
Sorry.
We are suggesting that the language be student use of a personal electronic device is prohibited from the start of regular instructional hours to the end of regular instructional hours. And I should have stricken out the except as provided below.
Okay, just Melissa, I'm going to ask one clarifying question, right? So it ends as end of regular instructional hours, period, no footnote.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Director Stanley.
I need a little clarification. I'm sorry, I must have blanked out when you were talking about field trips. Are we saying they're going to be allowed on field trips or not allowed on field trips?
Yeah, it says the district could include language regarding field trips here. So I think the decision is, do we want language in the policy about field trips or not? For clarification, I think if students, it's pretty clear that it does not have to be in effect when students are on the school bus with only a school bus driver. And that if they're under the supervision of school personnel other than just the driver, that the sample policy says it's prohibited. However, the ODE's guidance says that districts could have discretion here.
Okay, this is a fascinating little nuance for me because I can see wonderful opportunities for kids to have access to their cell phones if they're going to, say, the Portland Art Museum or on a walking trip somewhere in Portland, to the aquarium, to the zoo, to various places they might not get at all times. So I'd love to flesh that out a little bit more, I guess, because it could be considered a learning tool in that opportunity with pre-teaching and structure and guidelines, and still off and away during school instructional time. So I'd love to maybe, I don't know, spend a little time on that. Doesn't have to be right now, but at some point.
I raise my hand. I agree with Director Stanley. I was fine with the footnote stuff because it was giving me, again, helpful information. And I guess I just need it more than others. I like the idea that I knew and understood about a school bus driver. I think more information is helpful for clarification purposes, more like we were doing with definitions. So just some feedback. And we are going to be looking at the travel policies coming up here when we get through this. But it would be nice to have it where we're talking about the device, not just over there in, that we have to go look someplace else about field trips or traveling, our sports teams, things of that nature. So I would call for more clarity in some form or fashion. Thank you. Others? We're at 9:44.
Okay, here we go. This there's additional language around this that students may be allowed to use PEDs that support academic activities and independent communications except as prohibited by the policy. When it's required as part of the curriculum, students may be allowed but not required to bring their devices. And there's a footnote that says that the use of the personal electronic device in this paragraph comes from a different ORS, which doesn't define the term. And so this clarifies, the footnote clarifies that it's the definition in the executive order. Where's my clicker? There. Oh, no, there are no suggestions on that part, because there were no decision points on that. I believe this is the last one, and maybe one that will take a while. This is about response to noncompliance. So the policy must outline clear and consistent district-wide, school-wide approach, and encourages staff to follow similar expectations. The approach needs to emphasize restorative and instructional responses over punitive actions, and cannot include responses that remove students from instructional time, and can include examples of allowed responses. The sample policy lists that students in violation of the policy will be subject to disciplinary action, and discipline for mere possession or use of the device may not include loss of instructional time, including suspension or expulsion, but could include, and we can opt to include those examples of detention, Saturday school, change to storage requirements. There are footnotes on the next page. However, if the actions taken by a student violate another conduct policy, they could be subject to exclusionary discipline. We do have a decision point whether or not we include what the steps are. You see the bracket there for steps may include first, second, third, beyond third, and bracket for that decision. The footnotes are that a correction may include requiring a student to store their device in a classroom storage space instead of a backpack, and gives an example that a student could be disciplined for lost instructional time using their device to bully another student, because that's beyond just pure possession, and that there's another footnote that we could include to consider whether this applies at all grade levels or we have different responses depending on the age appropriateness of the student. Our suggestion is to say that students who are in violation are subject to disciplinary action, and that may not include loss of instructional time. That meets the expectations of the executive order, and also, as you see, would strike out the 3 footnotes.
Part of the thought process as far as why we'd strike that out are a couple. Number one, the executive order requires us to do this, but it doesn't require us to stipulate what those things are in the policy. And each school is taking a bit of a different approach. To put it in the policy would indicate that we're aligning approaches across schools. And so then there would need to be some reconciliation in terms of what that approach would be. The second piece is just what I've observed over time is a more minimalist approach that the board has taken in policy, which is why we were suggesting that this not be a component here, but is existing at the school sites.
I was thinking about one other thing. Director, Vice Chair Moran.
Yes, thank you. I'm thinking back to one of my first meetings as a board member, And there was conversation around this from our middle school folks, and there was concern that if we didn't have this set of kind of blanket minimum enforcement compliance policy, that, it could be, well, why do the students at Oliver get to do this when the students at Centennial Middle get to do that, and whatnot. So I'm in favor of having some minimum compliance and enforcement spelled out, like, hey, yes, and have it to be, and have that being uniform. But I'm also open to kind of what we said before too, a few slides back, is that, maybe it could be grade level appropriate on what some of those are, right? Again, I'm not super concerned about a kinder on a cell phone, but clearly, today's teenagers are glued to them. So I would leave that out there for consideration in the rewrite.
Thank you. I'm keeping track of hands. I might not be calling you in the order in which you put them up, but you will be called upon. So, Director Lynn.
Yeah. It was my understanding, again, from our past conversations, that we were already trying to have consistency from K up to high school. Really, I think first off, I think in the first sentence, the will should be turned into a may. So again, that we have that we're giving that maximum discretion. And I really would not like to see the high school at lunch with students getting a cumulative disciplinary order, and especially some sort of reverse of things where they're getting in more trouble for having it out at lunch than they would in class. And really, if there is no other disciplinary concern, then especially at high school lunch, any kind of violation should not be cumulative.
Thank you. Director Solowski?
I think that I'm in favor of spelling things out a little bit. I don't think it needs to be just about compliance and consequences. I think we need to spell out what restorative process can look like for our staff, because I think it's very easy for us to lean into consequence and compliance, and that restorative muscle is hard and needs to be taught. And I don't think we're ready to just be like, yes, let's all be restorative, because I don't think all of our staff even knows what that means. And so, yes, spelling things out, I am in favor of.
Thank you. Director Stanley?
I think in the minimum, we need to spell out the elementary, middle, and high school, just so that, because we do have two middle schools, I agree that we don't want to that school versus this school versus that school versus this school situation. It's a small district. Everybody knows each other, and conversations will happen. So I'm a little, to use a really awesome descriptive word, hinky about not having things be pretty clear across those grade bands. And my second point would be, I don't want to have any consequences that our parents are going to struggle to follow through. So I don't want to mandate, hey, the parent has to meet in the office to pick up a phone. That just might not be possible. So I am hugely in favor of restorative practices if we can weave some of those in, and looking at a way maybe even for schools to develop their own processes of how phones would be returned and removed. I'm intrigued by as well.
Thank you. Director Newman? Where'd you go? There you are. Oh, you're muted, Director Newman.
I put my hand down, didn't unmute. I was saying, I think I'm thirding Directors Stanley and Solowski here a little bit. I'm a little bit concerned with the current striking everything out being a little bit too vague, a little bit too open-ended. But I'm also concerned. I look at I agree with crossing out the steps that were crossed out, because I'm really concerned about. I'm seeing all kinds of equitable red flags right there, especially differences in families' abilities to be able to come to the school during school hours to pick up a cell phone that maybe their kid needs for getting to their job or something like that after school.
Thank you. Director Olson,
Okay.
how you doing?
Oh my goodness, I think we're nearly done. The next one is just that we need to ensure that we are accessible and transparent with our policy. And to this, the final decision point, whether or not the board wants to include a sentence about when the policy will take place. By statute, it must take effect by January 1. The board has until Halloween to pass a policy, but we have a grace period built in.
And we'll give you feedback on that later. Just I'm looking at, we got to get this sucker done.
Yep.
You have to
great.
land the plane.
Thank you.
All right,
that's
board
the end.
members, looking at the time, we have a few things that we absolutely must do. May I have a motion to extend up to 15 minutes and no more to deal with confirmation items, the OSBA Board of Directors, in case somebody's interested in or continuing, and the superintendent report.
Motion to
Oh,
extend.
stop,
And-
Chair.
I'll let Rose make a motion.
Motion to extend the meeting for 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, Director Selesky and Director Stanley made the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. All right, let's get on it. I'm going to skip right to confirmation items because it's just an easy one. Do I have a motion to confirm in mass the confirmation items as listed in the agenda?
I move to confirm in mass the confirmation items collected in the agenda.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
Director Harden seconds, Director Newman, and then Director Harden. All those in favor indicate by either saying aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Thank you so much. All right, that's done. We are also moving over quickly to old business. The OSBA Board of Directors and Legislative Policy Committee, there's nomination process. Is anyone interested in being nominated for one of those positions? And I'm looking at you, Director Lynn, if you wanted to be nominated to continue.
No, thank you.
All right, any others? All right, so we are not making any recommendations for nominations. Everything else that you see on this agenda will be handled at a later meeting, with the exception of the superintendent report. And Superintendent Owens, when you do your report, could you also then include the future agenda items in case there's anything you'd like us to be thinking about or focusing on? Woohoo, let's go.
I think you were reading my mind, and we have a short version of the report, so you are in luck. I'm between you and not being in this meeting anymore, so I'll be mindful of that. All right. Greetings, board directors. It's my pleasure and privilege to share with you this update on happenings in the Centennial School District. Last Wednesday, we had the honor of welcoming Oregon Department of Education Director Dr. Charlene Williams to Pleasant Valley Elementary School as part of ODE Spotlight on Promising Practices during Attendance Awareness Month. The visit was coordinated by Chief Communications Officer Christine Andreg and hosted by Principal Christina Anderson. It included classroom visits, time with students during breakfast and morning meeting, and a conversation with the school counselor around the implementation of Oregon's Transformational Social and Emotional Learning, or TESOL standards. In connection with the visit, Pleasant Valley and Centennial School District were featured in a statewide announcement recognizing our efforts to support student attendance. Released on September 17th, the announcement highlights how our intentional focus on belonging, relationships, and early literacy is helping students feel connected and excited to come to school. This work aligns closely with our Roadmap 27 priorities, especially our efforts to improve attendance and engagement by building environments where students feel safe, valued, and supported. The District Equity Advisory Committee held its first ever meeting last Thursday, co-facilitated by Assistant Superintendent Dr. Tasha Katsuda and Director of Student Services Denise Wright. The meeting consisted of committee members representing students, families, school staff, and community members. The committee began with introductions and community building activities, followed by an overview of the Centennial equity journey and current student demographics. Participants explored the legal foundation and purpose of district equity committees under the Student Success Act and reviewed relevant materials in a jigsaw-style discussion. They also reflected on how the committee's work aligns with Roadmap 27's goals, such as collaborating with families and community and centering student voice, empowerment, and leadership. I had the opportunity to provide brief opening remarks and appreciated the thoughtful engagement and perspectives that were shared in the meeting. The committee's input will help inform district practices, identify barriers to equity, and shape recommendations that improve experiences and outcomes for all students. Last Friday, I joined the 8 superintendents from across Multnomah County for a regional retreat facilitated by MESD Superintendent Dr. Paul Coakley. The gathering provided time for shared learning, relationship building, and alignment on regional priorities, including efforts to improve safety protocols, strengthen early learning systems, and enhance regional coordination. Additional topics included in the superintendent sharing from their respective districts, government affairs coordination, immigration response resources, and planning for upcoming professional learning opportunities. I appreciated the opportunity to collaborate with colleagues from across the county and ensure Centennial's perspective is part of that conversation. Last Thursday evening, I had the chance to attend the back to school night at Oliver Middle School. Families gathered in the cafeteria before visiting classrooms to meet teachers and learn more about the school year. Staff from across the building were present and welcoming, creating a warm and inclusive atmosphere. Students took pride in showing their families around, and many paused to sign the new hallway mural, which you can see on the far right on the picture, which is a powerful invitation to leave a visible mark on the school community. The event closed with a raffle, adding a fun and celebratory ending to the evening. So kudos to Principal Jeb Hubbs and the OMS team for organizing a thoughtful and well-executed event. Last Friday, Centennial Middle School was one of several local sites selected for a special visit as part of the Portland Trail Blazers' 11th annual Rip City Rally. Students participated in a PE takeover event with Blazer staff and received donated water bottles through a partnership with Moda Health. The Rip City Rally is an annual statewide tour aimed at building community and connecting with fans beyond the Portland metro area. In addition to CMS, the day included visits to Alder Elementary and the Reynolds School District, as well as Open School East, with the celebration culminating at the Gresham Arts Plaza. We were proud to have Centennial featured as part of this high-energy, community-centered event, and I also want to recognize Board Director Melissa Stanley for taking the time to attend and represent the district. A quick reminder that homecoming is coming up Friday, October 3rd. Festivities will begin with the annual homecoming parade, followed by the varsity football game against Park Rose. This is always a fun and spirited event, and I hope to see many of you there. You should have already received a calendar invitation from Executive Assistant Missy Grindle. With that, I invite any questions or comments you might have, and that concludes my superintendent's report. And future agenda items include superintendent's evaluation discussion, which is rolling forward off of this agenda. Dining services won a national award, and so we'll have an opportunity to recognize that and receive a sampling of food from courtesy of them. A couple of policy first reads, and then a standard slate of reports.
Thank you, Superintendent Owens. Any final thoughts before we call for adjournment? You guys are done so well. So well. Director Stanley?
I just want to say I went to 4 schools on Friday. And if you get the chance to do it, I highly recommend doing it. I got a sub. It was great. But I saw the regulation spaces that the schools are implementing and putting together, and visited the new preschool classrooms, and saw all the air conditioning units. So it was a rip-roaring good time. But every teacher said they would love to see more board members through the schools. So just a little plug.
Thank you so much. Any others for the good of the order? Seeing none, we adjourn this meeting at 10:04 p.m. Thank you so much, you guys. You did a great job. Good night.